Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we try to be as balanced as possible on this show, which means sometimes we make everyone happy. Everyone is going to be happy at some point on the shows that we do this week, and everyone's going to be upset at sometimes at the shows that we do this week. This show in particular, our wonderful audience of Ohio State fans, you're going to be mad at us. You're going to read the title and say, "These no good sons of guns." We're trying to be as balanced as we possibly can on this thing. We did the Ohio, how Ohio State beats Michigan show, and got a bunch of see last year, and we believe it or not, we did see last year. We have a memory that we remember what happened last year. Yes, it is also possible that Ohio State wins this game, but on this show we're going to be talking about if Michigan wins, which is certainly a possibility this year, how that happens.
So if you could hit the thumbs up before you go, we would appreciate that.
Do that now before you watch us say stuff that's going to make you angry, or do it now before we say stuff that's going to make you happy.
There you go. And get it out of the way. Stop procrastinating, especially this time of year. You should just be getting stuff done. You don't need one more thing to do later on. So, Tom, when I think about how Michigan wins this game, my first thought is about what Michigan has done to almost lose games this year, and that's random Bryce Underwood turnovers at the worst absolute time that some teams just can't take advantage of enough. So my first note here is discretion is the better part of valor for Bryce Underwood. When he gets blitzed or pressured and he tries to scramble out and throw it back across the field looking for somebody, I don't think you want to do that. Go ahead and take the sack, live to fight another day. If this is going to be a low-scoring game, you don't want to give up any short fields. Ask Ohio State how that goes if you turn the ball over in your own territory. You don't want to do that. So when you are scrambling or you're about to take a sack, just go ahead and take it. Don't throw it up. I don't think you don't have the receivers that and frankly the vision and the accuracy at this point to make those pinpoint passes. You are not Dylan Raiola, okay? You can't be doing this crazy stuff. But basically, just go ahead and it's okay to throw the ball away. Ryan Day loves it when his quarterbacks throw the ball away. I'm sure Sharon Moore would love it if Bryce Underwood would throw the ball away at times. And also, hey, don't get hit in the head. Stop getting hit in the shoulder as well. But just, I know you want to win the game. You want to do everything you can to win the game. Sometimes winning the game, as Jim Tressel would say, as long as you're kicking the ball on every possession, whether that's a punt or an extra point or a field goal, you're okay.
Yeah, this is a Michigan team that has gotten away with a lot of mistakes in the last couple of weeks that they really, truly cannot get away with this week, where you're -5 in turnovers against Northwestern and you somehow win the game against a decent Northwestern. And this is not a bad Northwestern team where you're playing UMass and you turn the ball 5 over, so turn it over 5 times. This is a Northwestern team that I believe is bowl eligible now. And Michigan goes on the road, turns the ball over 5 times, and somehow wins the game. You cannot do that this weekend, no matter how hard you try. They did their very best to lose the game against Purdue. Purdue did not let them lose the game against Purdue. You can't do all that stuff. You can't do that this week. And I think you kind of have to look to the J.J. McCarthy games against Ohio State, how he beat them. He would hit some downfield shots, especially in 2022 at Ohio State, hit some downfield shots. But it's just, a lot of it was just get out, try and get yourself out of the pocket, find something, find someone open. I don't think having Bryce Underwood sit in the pocket and scan the field, I don't think that's what Michigan's going to try and do. I think they're going to try and get him out of the pocket, get him on the edge, have some clear passing lanes and try and give him some easy throws. I think you're going to have to make some tough throws to Andrew Marsh. That's the one guy I would, if it's a contested throw, I would make a contested throw to Andrew Marsh. Everyone else, get him on the edge and make some easy throws. You have seen the NFL version of J.J. McCarthy. 9 currently ranks 851st out of 852 quarterbacks since 2000 in yards per attempt, ahead of only the legendary Jamarcus Russell. So good news, he's ahead of a former number 1 overall and draft pick. Bad news, literally everything else. But Michigan was able to find ways to put J.J. McCarthy in a place to win, in a position to win. You're now seeing, why did they run the ball 32 straight times against Penn State or whatever it was? Well, it's the stuff we were saying back then. You can work around that. And with Bryce Underwood, he doesn't have, all of the same issues that JJ McCarthy did, but he has, he's a true freshman. He's got different stuff you're sort of working around right now. And a lot of that is, he is literally a true freshman. So he's going to do some crazy stuff every once in a while. You have to limit the crazy stuff, put him in a position to make easy throws, put him in a position to try and make some plays with his legs, and don't ask him to do too much. I think that's big job number one for him. And then a lot of that, I feel like, is set up by, they got to be able to run the ball. And if they have Jordan Marshall, I think they're going to be able to run the ball some, and that they might be able to run the ball enough to put Bryce Underwood in positions where he doesn't have to do too much. So much of the passing game feels like it's going to be set up by how well does Michigan run the ball.
Well, and Ohio State has the best run defense in the Big Ten. The only team that has rushed for over 100 yards in them was Texas at the season opener, and they have a quarterback that can run just like Michigan does with Bryce Underwood. And they're both kind of similar athletes, where they're not, in terms of Arch Manning, like they're not. This is not Denard Robinson. This is not somebody that you have to, like, he's going to go 85 yards because of his speed. He could go 80 yards because there's nobody around, and he's 4.65 or whatever, and has the ability to scramble and pick up yards. And I think that's going to be a key component of their running game as well, and that will help out Jordan Marshall, Bryson Cusdahl. But when you look at Ohio State, they, as I said, lead the Big Ten in rush defense and yards per carry defense. And they've allowed Purdue 4.2 yards per carry, 22 carries for 92 yards for Ohio State. That's the high water mark since that Texas game. That was the only team they've allowed more than 3.06 yards per carry was Wisconsin. That's the third best this season. But Michigan sticks with it, and they've got that mentality of, we're just going to keep doing it. And then, Tom, what happens when they continue to stick with it? And every single game this year, just about, somebody hits a home run, and now you've gone from 3.2 yards per carry to 5.6, and you've doubled your yards. And like, Ohio State fans know what we're talking about, right? When it comes to the Michigan game, they just stick with it, and they keep smashing that wall until finally something breaks, and then they're off.
Right. If Michigan can keep this game close and can keep their running game really at the center of what they're doing, eventually they're going to pop one. It's not, you are not going to be able to stop Michigan. If they run the ball 35 times, you are not going to keep them to 3 yards every time they run the ball. Not going to happen. Eventually they are going to find something, and they're going to find a seam, and the running backs are talented enough to take that seam and turn turn a little bit of a hole into a 20-yard run, 25-yard run. This is not like, they're going to run for 97 yards on one play and it's going to be amazing. I mean, maybe, but probably not. They don't have to run for 97 yards. You saw last year, Michigan was just banging their heads against the wall for basically 55 minutes or so. And then they popped one play, and it was just one missed tackle on the edge. And that was enough, where Michigan just sort of played the field position game for basically the entire game. And all they had to do was pop that one, get them into field goal range, and boom, they kick the field goal and win the game. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to run for 7 yards a carry all game against Ohio State to have that be an effective running game. If they can just sort of stay on schedule, can you just pick up 4 yards consistently? If Michigan can run for 4 yards consistently and just sort of stay on schedule and get into 2nd and 6 and get into 3rd and 2, then you have opportunities to potentially hit something big in the passing game if you're consistently in 2nd and short, 3rd and short kind of situations. I think they can do that I don't know that they're going to be able to consistently run for 4 yards a carry. Maybe. We'll see how healthy Jordan Marshall looks. I know the word was he could play last week. I know that injury reporting and conversations this time of year have varying levels of truth to them. Supposedly he's good to go. Supposedly the shoulder is not a concern. We'll see. I don't know if you're going to want that shoulder getting hit 20 times a game. So I don't know. I mean, I was more impressed with Bryson Cusdahl than I was expecting to be last week. So maybe they're going to try and split carries between those two guys. And maybe it is 12, 15 carries each, and you just kind of are just pounding the rock into the wall and see what comes of it. But the opportunity is certainly there for Michigan because the offensive line is better than I think you probably would have expected earlier this year.
Yeah, and they've gone through some changes and through injuries, and now I think they've had the same offensive line for about the last 4 games, so they're pretty gelled in. Looking at their Michigan rushing stats all season long, their 2 low water marks: 146 yards against Oklahoma, loss; 109 yards against USC, loss. No surprise there, right? Like that makes sense. So hold them under 150 yards, you got a chance to beat them. Their last 4 games, albeit at Michigan State, against Purdue, at Northwestern, at Maryland, they went 276, 253, 216, 228. So they're on a roll right now. They're certainly feeling confident, even with Bryce and Cusdahl, but they should. I mean, and they're just happy to run the ball, and then when Bryce Underwood needs to scramble, they do it. Tom, the other side of the ball, Michigan's defense. One of my first defensive note here is for the defensive line to get your hands up. In terms of, if you're not going to get there, just get your hands up, try to knock the ball in the air. That's 25% of, or maybe 50% of Julian Sain's interceptions this year. One was a tip, another one was basically a forced fumble as they're hitting him. But create havoc in terms of getting the ball up there, and just you've got an opportunity. You might have a better opportunity to intercept the ball that way than with your corners. So that's my first thought, especially since the defensive tackles aren't even going to necessarily get to the quarterback anyway. To get Julian Sain, 6'1", Julian Sain, get your hands up and try to create a turnover that way.
Yeah, it feels like Michigan's pass rush really comes off the edge this year, much more than up the middle. And maybe Derek Moore gets there. Maybe Jayshon Barham gets there. But yeah, if you're going to get something out of the interior of that defensive line, it's probably going to come from deflected passes. And as we've seen Michigan deflect passes and intercept them this year. That's it. As soon as that ball goes up in the air, I always feel like the defense has a much better chance because Michigan, with as much zone as they play, everyone's looking at the quarterback. You're not turning and running like you are in man coverage. Everyone's looking at the quarterback. So if that ball goes up, everyone's looking at it and everyone's breaking on it. So yeah, that feels like a real potential opportunity for Michigan if you get your hands up. I don't expect Michigan's defensive line to very clearly win the game. I think it's possible this ends up sort of a stalemate. I don't think Ohio State's going to dominate the game as on their offensive line, and I don't think Michigan's defensive line is going to dominate the game like we've seen at times in the past. It feels like this is probably going to be more of a stalemate. And then the question is, what does Wink Martindale do about it? Because we know Wink Martindale, he loves to bring pressure. We know Wink Martindale will run that cover 0, and he wants to bring extra guys, especially in third and long kind of situations. And we watched that USC game, and boy, oh boy, really did not work against USC. It brought a lot of pressure. And Lincoln Riley just said, okay, I know what you're going to do. And so I can, anything you do, there is an answer for it. There are zone beaters, there are man beaters, you're bringing a bunch of pressure beaters, whatever it is. If you know what the opposing coach is going to do, you can beat it. And Martindale has obviously adjusted to that quite a bit. He's stopped doing his Don Brown impression, which is, probably a good thing for the Michigan defense on the whole. But they also, they have not played a great offense for quite a while. This is a game where Ohio State is going to play the best defense they've played in at least a month, maybe longer than that. And Michigan is going to play the best offense they've played in at least a month and maybe all season. So I'm really interested to see what Wink Martindale does in terms of how much pressure does he bring, because I'm sure he knows the secondary is not going to hold up if Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith, if Ohio State has Carnell Tate. Probably potentially a big game for Max Clare. How is Michigan's defense going to deal with that? Because I don't think they can just drop 8 guys in coverage, and I don't think you can consistently bring pressure. They're going to have to really mix things up and just try and get Ohio State off balance.
If they can, and we know Ohio State's offense is patient, I think what would help Michigan greatly how is Michigan going to win this game? The timing between quarterbacks and receivers is off. If This is Carnell Tate's first game back in almost a month, and Jeremiah Smith's first game back since Purdue. And they're just, didn't necessarily practice a bunch this week. And so things are off. The back shoulder isn't there like it normally was. And we've seen the back shoulder not be there since Carnell Tate left, basically. They've tried to throw it to other guys, and it just doesn't work because there's just not enough connection between Julian Sand and the backup. So, the option routes, how well are they reading those? And, are they on the same page throughout? I think for Michigan to win this, they need some help from Ohio State's just lack of, not being together for a while and not being on the same page. I think that would help them. And I think that's a very, very real possibility. Even if everybody's back, not everybody being back just yet, because they're only newly back, Tom. It's a lot of backs, I know. But where it's just not as smooth as you want. Bill Landis, after the game, asked Ryan Day, how confident are you that if you have Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith back, that you can get to the offense that you had against Penn State, which was you were firing on all cylinders? And Ryan Day didn't really answer that. He's like, well, it's a work in progress and we'll work on it. So he didn't say, oh, no, I'm confident we will be there. So I don't know that you can be confident that they will be there. So I think that's a legit avenue for Michigan. How they win, it's because Ohio State has missed time. The receivers have missed time, and they just don't have the connection that they need. And that connection would have made this maybe a 17-point game instead of a 3-point game at the worst time.
Yeah, I do want to correct, because I'm sure people are screaming. Jeremiah Smith did play the first half against UCLA, so it has not been quite as long, but your point stands. You're still, we don't know exactly how much he's been practicing. We don't know how much he's going to practice this week. We'll see. I think my expectation is he'll play, and we'll see if Carnell Tate plays, but the point on the rust is exactly right. And I think that's, with a quarterback and wide receiver, that's probably an even bigger factor than with the running back like Jordan Marshall. I don't necessarily look at that as big a concern. So yeah, I think this is something where does Jeremiah Smith play? Does Carnell Tate play? If the answer is both of them play, I sort of have one score prediction. If one of them plays, I have a different, and if neither of them plays, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, if both of them play, it's going to be hard for Michigan to win, especially if both of them play like they did earlier this season. Will they both play? I don't know. Will they be able to play the way that they did earlier in the season? I have some questions there. I think Michigan could, I think if Ohio State only has one of them or only has one of them playing, a lot in that game, that I think really changes Michigan's path to victory. Because I think the most likely way that Michigan wins this game, outside of the real edge case scenarios where they get, they're +3 in turnovers or something like that. I think Michigan kind of has to win a rock fight. I think this needs to be a 17-13 kind of game or something in that neighborhood. And boy, if Michigan can get the turnover that they've got in the last couple of years, where you get the interception in the first quarter and that sets up a touchdown, if Michigan's defense can steal 7 points from the Ohio State offense, boy, that really changes the calculus on this. Because if Ohio State gets up and then Michigan can't rely on running the ball, that really puts them behind the 8 ball. If Michigan can keep the game close and they can hold the Ohio State offense to field goals and not touchdowns, and if Michigan can maybe steal an early touchdown on a turnover like they have the last couple of years, that really gives Michigan a much clearer path to just sort of be able to bludgeon Ohio State. That's the way they win this game. Is you keep it close, you keep it low scoring, you steal a possession maybe on a fake punt, a kick, onside kick, whatever it is. Maybe a fake field goal, because Dominic Zavada has been really shaky this year. It feels like that's sort of Michigan's path to a win here, is keep it close, keep it low scoring, maybe steal some points, steal a possession, wherever it is, and then just try and get Ohio State in a position where they're, it's close, it's late, and they haven't been in that position this year, really.
Well, and last point on Ohio State receivers, what if they're in and out of the game as well? Right. That would also be a tough thing for Ohio State to deal with. But if it is a low-scoring game, hey, Dominic Zavada has to make his field goals. That's how Michigan wins. Dominic Zavada does not miss any field goals. And then if it's close late, you got to start wondering about Ohio State. And does Ohio State start wondering about Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've also got that mental aspect of it where every play becomes bigger, tougher, you got to move faster, and it becomes a 12th defender essentially against the Ohio State offense. So all of those things, I think that is the path to victory for Michigan. As you said, win the rock fight, make your kicks, and just, I guess, do what you've been doing and see how it goes. But this is obviously a different Ohio State team. This is a different Michigan team. And you still have to go out there and make the plays, and we'll see if they can. So there you go. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. That's a great way to support what we do. And, of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.